Hello, my name is Jonathan DeBruin, and I would love to become an engineering intern at Yanfeng. When I was a kid, who did I want to be when I grew up? Initially, when I was very young, maybe before third grade, I wanted to be a teacher. I just loved being around people and education I was getting. This quickly changed into an engineering role after third grade just because I became fascinated with cars and automotive industry. That just drove me to research into what do car makers major in? What do car designers major in? And that became engineering. So early on, I wanted to design cars and be able to make a difference through that. I also began excelling in science and math when I was growing up, just in middle school and elementary school. So that kind of had some people push me to kind of say, hey, that might be a good thing to pursue in high school is to really go into math and science and really do AP classes in those areas. I realized also that many of the people in my life, such as my uncles and close family friends, were engineers as well as scientists. And that just, um, I respected those people, so I was interested in their careers. So, giving an example of someone who was difficult to get along with and how did I handle interactions with that person. So, I can think of about two people that I have specifically dealt directly with when they were being difficult. The first was for SAE, our Society of Automotive Engineers Club, the co-president, Brandon Lasandak. Um, he really wanted to scrap the old team's design and not take any of their ideas. And because it had been done 3 years before, and we were just starting up a club, it was a senior design project. He wanted to do total redesign, and it was going to cost a lot, and it was going to take a lot more time than just the year that we had. Um, the faculty and I wanted to reuse the chassis for cost and time effectiveness. It'd be easier to raise money with donors and things like that. And so we decided to compromise, and we worked as a parallel team. My team just took we took the chassis on, and slight redesigns of every piece is what we're planning on doing. Excuse me. And Brandon's team is going to do a parallel chassis design so that when further years can come, he can get that design experience that he wanted from the ground up, but then they can kind of combine our ideas over the years. Um, yeah, so we just made that compromise, and I handled these interactions by explaining kind of what the team was thinking as a whole and taking into account his ideas as well. I really wanted to be able to, I was talking to my team leads for suspension and chassis and things like that and what they were saying, and I was taking what Brandon was saying as the co-president, and I tried to explain where the team was at to him, as well as uh, give him some input in what he wanted. Um, yeah, I also just try to handle the situation with kindness. I never think anger doesn't really help in clubs or in the workplace that well. So as long as you can be very, very kind, and sometimes they might see that kindness that you're trying very hard, um, and all of a sudden be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be a little easier to work with and things like that. So just kindness and a team-oriented mind is kind of how I handled those interactions. A second time was over the summer. Some interns and I were putting up a large material handling rack, and one intern was kind of a little bit directing, but just really just kind of not doing much work at all. And he was being difficult by telling us we were doing everything wrong, even though um, he wasn't doing any of the work as well as we were actually constructing it correctly. And I just tried to pick up his slack and work extra hard so that our other interns wouldn't get discouraged, as well as hopefully lead by example. Next question. What are the three things that are most important to me in a job? This is a great question. My first one is to make a difference. And I say this one because that is the reason I am passionate about the automotive industry. Nearly everyone in America and nearly everyone in the world too drives a car or has some interaction with a vehicle every day. And I think that is just a key opportunity that I have to use my skills in a positive way as an engineer so that I can engineer something that affects many people um, in a positive way. I want a job that I can make a difference. Number two, I would love a team-oriented workplace. I think the input that teams can give rather than an individual creates for a more streamlined product design process, as well as just a higher quality one. Many hands make light work is the saying, but I also think many brains make better quality products. I also think that teams can solve problems better and quicker. Um, I even was founding an energy team at my last internship to be interdepartmental and focus on energy savings. Culture is really important and a high priority for me. I think this is because I really want to be able to like where I work and then I can work even better. So having a great culture is important to me. An example where I used logic to solve a problem. There was one day I was on the manufacturing floor at Pigeon and Clay this past summer in my internship, and I kind of took notice to this weld cell. It seemed to be just running a little clunky. There were two operators at two weld stations, and um, a shield would fly in front of them when it was welding, and it just looked inefficient. They would have to tape all the boxes shut once the parts were packed in it, and then move it to a pallet somewhere else. And I kind of just watched it for a little while and noticed that there was a lot of waiting and a lot of the machine wasn't working at its highest rate. So I ended up running a time study on it, and I realized that with one person on it, it was 64% more efficient than two people. And that's because it was a parts per man hour thing and not a throughput problem. Because we can run this on all three shifts, so it wouldn't have been a throughput problem. But it was just more logical to say, hey, you just keep bouncing from one cell to the next because they're only 2 feet away, rather than waiting for 13 seconds for that plexiglass to fly up so that you can put your part on. And I also designed a material handling rack that would fold those boxes shut and wait for them till they had downtime on the weld cell, which was about every 2 hours, so that they weren't taping all the boxes shut on good running time. Um, the first thing that I ever designed was actually a multifunction shelf clip. It ended up looking like two brackets connected to a little bit of right angle steel like that. Um, and they were to increase the quality of a weld cell as well as the ergonomics. Currently, people were reaching way across the cell to put the bolts um, onto the part that they were going to be welding to it, and they would actually stick the parts in the machine, so slag and different things could get in the bolts, causing a quality concern. So what I did is I designed this lightweight, multi-purpose, not intrusive clip. It was just two parts, and it could work with almost any tote that was at Pigeon and Clay that needed to be lifted up. So I designed that. Um, it also kept safety by staying out of the light curtain. My initial design, it made the tote stick into the safety switch of reaching into the machine. So I actually had to go back and redesign it to make sure that it's called a light curtain, which prevents people from reaching into the machine. So that make sure that light curtain wasn't broken. So in the end, I ended up with a couple of little clips that can be moved around because they were just unscrewable. Moved around, the spacing could change because they were two separate pieces. Many different totes could go on them, and that was kind of the first thing I designed. It was kind of a little initial project I had at Pigeon and Clay. I also actually designed a material flow rack for that resistance weld cell I was talking about before. That actually folded boxes. It was a two-tier system, and you would put it in, and it would fold the box for you, and then it would sit at the end on a little table where, when the downtime came, you could tape the boxes shut. So I'd just like to take the time now to thank you for the opportunity for considering me for a position at Yanfeng. I would be very excited about that, just to be able to get into the automotive industry and to be able to try and make a difference. Thank you.